Now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Tom from Iowa, go ahead.
I'm grateful to have been healed of a smoking habit through my practitioner's prayers. I was given to this habit, indulging in it, found it very hard to get away from, and finally, through her prayers, was able to overcome it, and since have been working for God much more in prayers and watchings, and I'm just much happier for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig.
Thank you for the music and the very helpful readings. This is a learning and progressing place. I want to give gratitude for work practitioner. Yes, been in quite a while and I enjoyed it all. And there are challenges, but they all turn out well. The help of practitioners and members of the church. For just God's given me good work for a good purpose. Work to support church, work to support my family, work to feel no pressure. And in doing that, you pray and act and get it done. And it's been a blessing to people there and myself. Well, recently, I had this very sense of anxiety. And after praying and working, I felt that I needed to get practitioner help. And I called a practitioner's church and was told that Mary Grady wrote an article on our website called, I have it here, Fear is Not Your Thinking. I was told to read it, to work with it, and I did not feel like myself, but probably at a normal time, I probably felt like I could have, after reading, I could have done this I've been taught this, but I needed to be pushed, directed to go back to, and to know that fear is not my thinking, and that to know I can stand up to it. It says, remember, there can be nothing that can come to you that you cannot overcome. So encouraging and inspiring, and I believe empowering. So I did. Particularly, my boss gave me a job to do. He had said, maybe you don't want to do it. But I wanted to do this for him, and I felt like more than a fool if I had said I wanted it and I couldn't. So I prayed again, and within a few hours, which I had been working for probably a couple of days, all the steps started coming together. Today I got a attaboy from him and a job well done, which meant a lot. It was God doing it, but he wanted me there to be a blessing to them. And yes, it's a blessing to me too, but he did not want mud on my face. Or I thank God for allowing us to have this help and Mary Grady, our practitioners, that we can keep on helping others and not be stressed.
Thank you. Jeremy.
What a wonderful blessing Christian Science has been to me. I'm so grateful for how everything I have learned as a member of this church is allowing me to experience and appreciate God's good reality. I realized recently how true it is that God makes all things new, as it says in the book of Revelation. Before Christian Science, my life was dull, and every single day felt the same as the previous day, or even the same day from the previous year. Over time, that took the joy out of living and my hope for a better tomorrow. Coming to Plainfield changed everything for me. Each day now presents its own opportunity to see what God would have me do. I wake up and feel such joy to find out what He has in store. Through all the teaching here, I'm learning to listen to spiritual sense and really trust that, quote, God good guides, guards, and governs, end quote, as Mrs. Singletary wrote in a recent newsletter. Because each day is now such a unique event in my life, I am learning to pay attention and be grateful for each part of it. It's astounding to me how God makes all things new and how much good is happening right now. I'm so grateful to Christian Science, this church, and daily practitioner support for giving me the ability to recognize and make the most of His constant blessings. Thank you.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. I grew up in a very abusive home. When I became an adult and moved out of the house, my life continued to reflect everything I was told and believed about myself. I hated myself and carried around so much resentment that I wasn't functioning well at all. I was filled with despair, depression, fear, and anxiety. I desperately needed help. A friend led me to a practitioner from the Plainfield Church. I had no idea what a life-changing phone call that would turn out to be. Through her loving and patient guidance, she has taught me to embrace my true identity as a child of God and has taught me the necessity of forgiveness. The spiritual truths that she has spoken to me have come with tremendous healing power. I would like to read a poem I wrote which expresses the transformation that took place shortly after seeking help through Christian Science. The dreary thoughts I used to think have now gone away, pushed across the sky like clouds on a windy day. The poetry I used to write was sad and uninspired. What joy it brings to my heart, the wonderful things transpired. The nights I cried in silent pain have bowed their head to God. His light has shined upon them, revealing them a fraud. The darkness of their shadow no longer match my attire. What peace it brings to my soul, the wonderful things transpired. The truths that have healed me have come by way of love. The wisdom that inspires me is the word from life above. Each new day is bathed with light, cleansing my wants and desires. How grateful I am for His patience and the wonderful things transpired. I am so grateful to God, Mrs. Eddy, and to my practitioner for all I have been given. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol.
I am very grateful for God's care. Sometimes it comes in rather unexpected ways. My washing machine was beginning to misbehave, and I did my dutiful looking around for pricing and to possibly get a new one. I don't even remember how old it is. It's been around for a long time. And my son was at one of his customers' house, and the customer had just gotten a new washing machine, but his wife didn't like it because it didn't match the dryer. So he said, so I have to buy another one. Can you get rid of this thing for me? So my son said, yeah, I think we can take care of that. So he went home and called me and said, do you want a new one? And I said, yeah. So he brought it over, and I now have a brand new washing machine that just works beautifully, and it's even bigger than the one I had. I am so very grateful to God. He meets the need before it even was ready for me to do anything about. I just am so very grateful, and so very grateful for working with a practitioner here who just keeps improving my life step by step. I'm very grateful to God for this church. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say that I've been going through some difficult times at work, and I'm just amazed at the practitioner support and how blessed I feel, and just what a wonderful church this is, and every member of this church, very grateful for. And also, many of the things that I have sort of maybe understood in Christian Science, but didn't really understand, just somehow didn't quite get it. Some of the stuff I see in the beginning now. So I suppose in that you go through difficult times is a good thing, because then you get to learn wonderful things. So I'm actually very grateful for that. And one of the things I think about is, as Christian scientists, we should first and foremost be joyful, and we should be grateful. So that's just a wonderful thing to think about. So if I'm not feeling joyful and I'm not feeling grateful, then, I take a pause and I say, okay, well, why not? And what are you going to do about it, And bring myself back. So that kind of constant process throughout the day is really helpful for me. It energizes me and keeps an even keel for me. Just want to say to have a great appreciation for the Plainfield Church and all of its members. I'd like everybody to know that. So thank you.
And thank you. Suzanne from Vermont, go ahead.
Good evening. I'd like to say a few words about the Bible studies held at our church on Saturday mornings. I had the joy of moderating one this past Saturday, and it was truly a blessing. If I could back up a bit, years ago I would hear about Bible studies and would think to myself, oh, maybe one day when I have time. But the idea just seemed so far off and foreign to me. I was rather ignorant of the Bible as a whole, apart from passages that were in our weekly Bible lessons. Then when I moved here 8 years ago, I didn't know anyone, so a friend of my husband invited me to join a local women's Bible study given in someone's home. At first, it was interesting, as I had never attended a Bible study, and I followed along while we took on subjects through a rather entertaining video series. After a while, though, I could see that the Bible studies were missing something, and that was an emphasis on the spiritual sense of the Scriptures as I had been taught in Christian Science. Although it was a lovely group of women, I felt I had a quite different view of things, so eventually I stopped attending. Fast forward a few years, and the Plainfield Church started having Bible studies. Now, you'd think that at the time I'd be more enthusiastic, but with my busy schedule, having gotten fully involved with my new community, it seemed like one more thing to do, and at first I didn't attend. With time, however, I could sense that I was keeping myself from a blessing, so I started attending, and in time I moderated one. I remember how nervous I was at first, but it was rewarding. Today, my outlook has shifted entirely, finally putting the things of God first. And now I simply can't think of a better way to spend my Saturday morning and start the weekend. As I learn more about Mary Baker Eddy and her reliance on the Bible, I'm embarrassed that I didn't embrace Bible studies earlier, but I hope to make up for lost time. I can't express in words just how wonderful it is to dive into Bible study. I'm grateful for the opportunity for learning and discussion that it provides, and for obviously finally getting to know the Bible better. I look forward to many more Bible studies and moderating again. I'm so grateful for the teachings in this church and the practitioners for setting me straight, and for all the members whose participation makes every activity in this church rewarding, as well as a blessing to the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Dede from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. While doing my lesson this morning, the beginning of Science and Health Citation 9 stood out to me. It reads, "The sharp experiences of belief in the supposititious life of matter, as well as our disappointments and ceaseless woes, turn us like tired children to the arms of divine love. Then we begin to learn life in divine science." About 4 years ago, I was at a point in my life where I began to lack inspiration, was going from one problem to the other, and was experiencing an overall depressed feeling as I had lost my true joy. I remember feeling down, and to better describe it, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I knew something needed to change immediately. Though I realized that at the time it wasn't a very conscious effort, I asked God for an answer by praying the best way I knew how. I was led to contact a practitioner in this church at the time. Soon after, I was redirected or turned from a local branch church to becoming a member of the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. By joining the watches, reading the lessons, and beginning to participate in roundtable discussions, I began to learn life in divine science. I began to understand God and to embrace my relationship with Him, which has since become my most valuable possession. With this learning, not only did my situation change for the better, my life was turned around completely as I began to truly live with the realization that God is my life. I am so grateful to be able to continue to learn in this church. I'm most grateful to Mrs. Eddy for the truth expressed in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, and I thank God for allowing me to be a part of the good work going on here. I'm very happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the readings tonight on asking, seeking, and knocking. I want to express my gratitude for being a member of the Plainfield Church, which came as a result of a long seeking. And God brought me to Plainfield, and I've never, ever been more grateful. I'm always so grateful. But I came into Christian Science. I learned about Christian Science and read Science and Health in my middle years. And I actually joined the Christian Science Church, the mother church. But in moving from one church and then to another and then another, it did not answer my need to truly understand and work in Christian Science. So I continued seeking through a period of great depression. Thanks to the Plainfield website, at last I found my church home. God truly answered my seeking. And I'm very grateful for all that goes on here, the Bible studies and the round tables, this meeting, these Wednesday night meetings that are so wonderful, all my fellow members. And even though I don't see the fellow members often, we meet on the telephone a lot. And that's wonderful for me. And I've enjoyed the times when I have been able to be at Plainfield and be with others there, as well as some from out of town. Thank you very much for this service tonight. It's wonderful to be here. And I'm very grateful to God for bringing me here. I'm so grateful for Mrs. Eddy for giving us Christian Science. I'm so grateful for my wonderful practitioner at Plainfield who brought me into the church when I called on the telephone for the first time, and who's always available to help me. Thank you so much for this service tonight.
Thank you. Chardell.
Thank you for this service of fine readings and beautiful music. Tonight, I would like to offer my gratitude to God, Christ Jesus, Mrs. Eddy, and my practitioner. Because of the teachings, prayers, and love practiced here at this church, no matter what the outward human appearance might be, wonderful signs appear to encourage and bless one's spiritual progress. For instance, angel thoughts that guide, an unexpected friendly gesture, finding a paper or document before you realize that you need it, being led to read something that brings a deeper understanding of God, a thought to do something for someone that brings them great joy, seeing God everywhere, and something like the song sung last Sunday about God having everything in control, performed by Jim, Craig, and Bruce, that brings great peace just when you need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Luba from Ohio, go ahead.
I'm so very grateful for the wonderful changes that have come into my life since coming to Plainfield. The lessons, the round table, and the Bible studies have been very enlightening. I'm especially grateful to my practitioner for the work she does and for the greater understanding of Christian Science she has brought into my life. Thank you so much for tonight's reading, and I'm so happy to be here this evening.
Thank you. Mike from New York, go ahead.
Thank you for the wonderful readings, the wonderful service, and the wonderful people and the wonderful testimonies. I have a lot to be grateful for tonight. I'm grateful to be able to attend this testimony meeting by simply pulling off the highway into a rest stop and participating. I'm grateful to all the Plainfield members that make this possible. I was grateful yesterday morning to spend a couple of hours of my drive just working with the 7 synonyms of God given to us by Mary Baker Eddy. I'm grateful for how animating that made the drive, with a reward of the largest, most beautiful orange sun I have ever seen. That made me think of how often the Bible and Mrs. Eddy used the sun as a metaphor to describe God. I'm grateful for the example of the sunlight going through a prism being broken down into the colors of the rainbow, as like God divided into the 7 synonyms by Mrs. Eddy to help us understand him better. Now I can see how God takes the rainbow of people and turns them into one shining spiritual light, the children of God. I'm most grateful for the teachings from the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent for enabling me to see things that I had never seen before through the Word of our God, illuminated by Christ Jesus and Mary Baker Eddy. I am so grateful to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda from Missouri, go ahead.
Thank you. This past weekend, a lot of unrest and violence was anticipated in our city in the wake of a verdict announced in a case involving a police officer that had been very highly profiled here. The verdict was in favor of the officer, and many threats had been made that if this happened, significant disruption would occur. Because something similar had happened a couple years ago in our area, many agencies throughout the state shut down, as did nearly the entire downtown area where I work, and the State National Guard had been activated to be ready to come in, which they had to do a couple years ago, in anticipation of the problems. I'm very thankful that overall, peaceful demonstrations have overwhelmingly prevailed. The evening before the verdict was handed down, I mentioned the situation to one of the practitioners in this church for prayerful support, and to also address my own sense of frustration towards those seemingly intent on causing disruption. Of the many helpful things my practitioner shared, one of the instructions I was given more recently was to review the January 2016 edition of Love is the Liberator, the magazine this church prepares, and I thank those responsible for ensuring that copies of prior editions can always be accessed online through the church's website. This particular edition is on the importance of watching, which Mrs. Eddy admonished us to do, and in particular, the watches on man's true heritage, racial discrimination, as well as world safety and the government and the whole world and universe being under God's power have been so helpful. In the watch pertaining to discrimination, a statement from Malachi is provided that reminds us, "Have we not all one Father? Hath not one God created us?" And the watch pertaining to the world and universe references Mrs. Eddy's reminder from Science and Health that love, the divine principle, is the father and mother of the universe, including man. And of course, she herself said that love is the liberator. While there have been some destructive protests and damage, I am thankful to say that those causing the disturbances have been in the overwhelming minority of people involved in the protests, and the degree of disturbance and violence anticipated has not manifested. The deployment of our National Guard has not been necessary either. I was also grateful to learn, and I don't know that it has been focused on in national reporting, that there have been many instances of people stepping up to encourage peace and order and safety. And in one example, after a late-night protest resulted in property damage to a popular downtown area, many of the protesters returned almost immediately when they heard about this in order to clean up the shops, help board up windows, paint windows with positive messages, and just support the area overall. While the demonstrations do remain ongoing, an overwhelming sense of order has been present. I've heard many people comment on their surprise that the disruption expected never occurred, and also heartened by the comments I've heard, including one I just heard earlier today from one of the security guards in our building, that he's been reading his Bible, and that all of this is just a reason to turn to God, because only He can rightly direct. I'm very grateful to the support of my practitioner through this situation, thankful to this church, and to our leader, Mrs. Eddy, for her sacrifices and willingness to be the messenger of this age and to provide us with Christian Science.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight I'd just like to give my gratitude for God leading me here. And when I look back on it, it's clearly an example of this instruction to ask, to seek, and to knock. I know that when I finally came to Plainfield, it happened after a long search of desiring to know God more. I had been a Christian Scientist, taking class instruction and all that, but I knew inside me something was missing. And I just continued to pray to God, ask, and I was finally led here. I am so grateful for all that has happened to me since I came here. It's been a life-changing experience, and I'm grateful to know that this is the way. And I'm grateful for all that's going on here to lead me even more to seek God, to be the only life that I know. Grateful for all the testimonies so far. Thank God, and I'm grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mary.
I'll read from our church website bulletin board, Massachusetts. I just wanted to say thank you to all the members of this wonderful church. I love to tune into the Bible study and roundtable meetings and am learning so much. I am practicing Christian Science instead of just trying. Also, I wish to express my deepest gratitude to those who write the lesson sermons each week. This week's lesson on matter is filled with spiritual fruits. Thank you. Another from Massachusetts. I am so appreciative of the watch that was written for Thursday night. I found it very beautiful and powerful and moving. I am learning more and more of the necessity and delight of working with joy, gratitude, and appreciation since finding this church. What a glorious thought this is, that we live in love. Could we possibly ask for more? That was a quote. Indeed. Blessings and love to all. And then a testimony from Florida. Since tuning into your weekly powerful Bible lessons last spring, my faith has grown much stronger through prayer and study. I was able to apply the teachings during Hurricane Irma and maintain peace by staying in the now, thankful for each moment. by going within and not being fearful of what my senses were forecasting. By focusing on the eternal now, my consciousness was above the storm, and I knew God was in control of everything. God's love was right there in each now, in total harmony. The next morning, when I looked out, there were tears of gratitude. The old trees knew how far to bend, and only a few branches were down. The pink plastic flamingos in the garden were still standing, and the feral feline I feed daily showed up at the back door for breakfast. I took to heart what Mrs. Eddy wrote in Now and Then, Proseworks, quote, "Behold is now the accepted time. A lost opportunity is the greatest of losses. Whittier mourned it as what was, might have been. We own no past, no future, we possess only now. If the reliable now is carelessly lost in speaking or in acting, it comes not back again. Whatever needs to be done, which cannot be done now, God prepares the way for doing, while that which can be done now, but is not, increases our indebtedness to God. Faith in divine love supplies the ever-present help and now, and gives the power to act in the living present." End quote. God bless you and the mighty work you do for the world. And then Pennsylvania, thank you for the roundtable yesterday on September 17th. During this discussion, we were guided to page 183 in Watches, Prayers, and Arguments given by Mrs. Eddy. I was struck on how clearly it is written that to believe a lie is a sin. Quote, "You know those suggestions are all lies, then it is a sin to believe them. Heal them. You are a child of God." End quote. This is so wonderful to work with in my daily prayer. Mrs. Eddy is telling us to wake up and trust God alone. Again, thank you. And then also, there's so many, thank you, this is Massachusetts. Thank you so much for including this song in today's calendar. I found it so delightful, sweet, and uplifting. That is the one that was sung on Sunday, that it's all under the control of God. It is wonderful to hear it again. Also in the calendar today, the testimony on being infused by the Holy Spirit. I found this so reassuring and a great relief. It reminds me that I am to always look to God for everything. It is not up to me to figure out what new and fresh insights and understanding of God I will get today, or worry that I won't get any, since God is the only mind and is my mind. My association with this beautiful church is helping me moment by moment to rely on God more and more. My heartfelt appreciation to the devotion that goes into this website, the services, Bible studies, roundtables, watches, and especially to God. Blessings and love. And then this is an email. Good morning. I just finished reading the book, Sermons and Articles on Christian Science by Doris W. Evans. What a sweet book. I am grateful for Plainfield and for those who had the foresight to publish this book. Besides the good I gained from reading it, it did also give me a bit of insight into what the church went through. I am impressed that Plainfield not only survived the attacks from Boston, but went forward to thrive. My teacher had had a huge association. He was straight and a good scientist, and yet the attacks took him down. I know as part of his association, we yearly pledged our loyalty to Boston in letters, and yet this did not seem to be enough. And I know others that were excommunicated, who also did not survive. Again, it is impressive that Plainfield and its members were not taken down by this. Major kudos. Thanks again for publishing this dear book. I'm grateful for that email, for that reminder of what did transpire here, and really what a wonderful thing it was. And there was one major reason why this church did survive, and it was because of Mrs. Evans and her husband. their love of Mrs. Eddy, their dedication to this cause, was something really to behold. Mrs. Evans, they both were healers. Mrs. Evans certainly healed quite a number of amazing cases, considered amazing, I would guess. And that attracted people to the area. People began to move to Plainfield. Houses were refurbished and fixed up so people could live in what we call church houses. We would have work parties. We worked together in unity. The watches began, 24 hours a day. We would have a watch. Someone would be watching. And of course, we were attacked by the BOD, but we persevered and we worked through that. And during that time, I call it boot camp for Christian scientists. It was intensive. We had classes every week, but there was tremendous growth. It wasn't just reading about it. We had to live it. If you didn't live it, you weren't going to be around. And in living it in that way, tremendous growth resulted. And we're not really sure if Mrs. Evans always knew exactly what was going to happen to this church, but she did have a core of workers that survived it all and have continued it. And now we are passing it on to you all. And it is the true science. It is what Christian science is. It is how it heals. It is how it transforms lives. It is not waving a magic wand and getting your instantaneous healing. It is much deeper than that. And it's just a very tremendous thing. And I am so very, very grateful to the Evanses for what they did, what they sacrificed. This did not just take a year or two. This was many years of being under the gun in that respect. And I often think, when I read in miscellaneous writings in the preface where Mrs. Eddy says, to preserve a long course of years, still in uniform, amid the uniform darkness of storm and cloud and tempest, requires strength from above, deep draughts from the fount of divine love. That is how we survived it, with the drinking deep draughts from divine love, by maintaining our unity, by keeping our focus, by our watches, and thank God for it. I'm so grateful to be here tonight to hear those beautiful readings, the beautiful music, the inspired testimonies of healing that's going on around our nation and our world. So glad to be with you here tonight.
Thank you.